Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and today we are looking for the hottest games ever. My friends letting me borrow their heat gun, and ooh baby, 91, that's okay. I was born in 92. But this little bad boy is gonna help us identify the hottest games out there. Let's go. All right, here we go. Let's try the hummingbird game. Oh, only 58, okay. Alrighty, what about these? Ooh, Heroescape. Let's see how Heroescape's doing. 56? That's not very good. Okay, let's see how Eldorado's doing. Wow, spicy. 87? That's pretty good. Oh, over here we got Loop and Seers Catalog! Loop and Seers Catalog! Oh my gosh. It's 500 degrees. Over 500 degrees. That's right, these two bad boys, they are hot. They are burning up right now. I do have to say, I designed Seers Catalog. It was developed by the amazing Ted and Bezier Games. It's a huge grain of salt, this entire video. The hook is, it sounds a little similar to Of What's Left, because the hook is you want to get as close to shedding out, but don't shed out. The game itself now plays 2 to 5 players. Absolutely amazing. And also there are artifact cards, which lets players do different powers, let's say. I'm gonna show you how this plays at Dice Tower West. That's right. I'm gonna be there, and there's gonna be a trick-taking room. You should definitely come down. We have Sandbag, we have Xylotar, the two games we covered recently. And then it sounds like there's a Xylotar outside. And then we're gonna have Seers Catalog. There's also gonna be a trick-taking room with a bunch of events. Come on down, it's absolutely gonna be amazing. This is probably coming out when it's going on. So if you're watching this and you're not in Vegas, jump on the soonest flight. No worry the expenses. The other game that we're gonna cover is Loop. This game is designed by Takashi Saito, and the other game that we're going to cover is Loop. This game is designed by Takashi Saito, and the hook of the game is players will be playing a normal climbing shedding game, nothing too special. The 8s are a little special, we'll get into that during the teach. But the wild thing is, as you play, you're going to be making sure that the cards you play will go back into your own area. You want to keep your hand together, because at the end of a round, you're going to find out who did best, second, third, fourth, or whatever it may be. And then starting with the fourth player, they're gonna stand up, everyone's gonna stand up, and you're gonna swap seats, but leave the hands. So the fourth player might look around and be like, I really like that hand that got second. I'm gonna stand up and go over there. And everyone has to switch. Everyone's gonna switch player seats, but you're gonna be playing a different hand, but all the hands stay the same. So can you do better with a hand that another player did with? And if you do better, you get more points. So if you take a hand that was third place last round and you bring it to second or first, you're gonna get more points than if you get third place again with that hand. Absolutely wild. Good stuff in this game. I don't wanna show my hand for the review, but wild stuff. So let's go to the table. This is gonna be at the normal table, but this is gonna be in Dice Tower West. So I'm gonna show you how to play these two games. And again, this is the first of my designs that is out there, and I just want to say Bezier was amazing. So thank you so much, Ted and everyone there. It was an absolute joy. I am blown away that this is out there. So thank you so much. And also, again, if I haven't said it enough, huge grain of sand, because I did the design on Seers Catalog, but I hope y'all love it. So let's go to the table. I'll show you how to play these two games. All right, bye. Seers Catalog is a reimplementation of What's Left. If you know how to play Of What's Left, skip ahead to this time stamp so you can just see the differences between the two games. The deck in Seers Catalog is 5 suits numbered 2 through 13. Depending on the player count, you're just going to remove suits. So you're going to have suits per player. So at 3, you would have 3 suits. And then at 2, you would have 3 suits, but you would remove the 11, 12, and 13. Here we have a game of Seers Catalog set up for 3 players, so no matter the player count, every player is going to get one wild card, and then 13 cards dealt to them, so the entire deck will be dealt out. And then, depending on the player count, you're going to look into the artifacts book, and you're going to see what artifacts you're going to use for your first game. So as you can see here, since we're doing a 3-player game, we're going to have these 6 cards. You're going to grab those, you're going to shuffle them, they have different backs than these, and you're going to deal 2 to each player. The player that is dealt the go first card is going to be the person who leads first into the trick. The game is a climbing, almost shedding game where players want to have as few cards as possible when someone else goes out. So since it's a climbing shedding game, what can you play? Well, you can play the single card, and if a player plays a single card, everyone else has to play a single on top of it, but of a higher value. So maybe this player up here plays a 5. You can always pass if you want. So maybe this player, the square silver, decides to pass, so it comes to the circle silver, and they can play whatever they want as long as it's higher than that up there. So, for example, they couldn't play this 2 or this 3, but they could play that 7. So this is going to keep going around and around and around until all the players pass. Let's say everyone passed, then you would just clean up the trick, and then the last player to play, so this circle silver over here, they would lead to the next trick. What else can you play? Well, you can play 2 of the same kind or 3 of the same kind, so you can play like something like pairs if you wanted to, or you could play 3 of a kind, but the meld has to stay the same. So when it comes to this player up here, they couldn't play a triplet on here. They would have to play the same meld. And you can also use your wilds if you want. So maybe, for example, they play their 11 and a wild. That would be an 11. And so since that's higher, it totally is valid. And again, we're climbing. So even though this person over here has a pair of 8s, they can't play it because it's an 11. And again, they can't play any other different meld. So they're just going to pass. Let's say it passed all around and cleared, and then it goes back to this pink silver player up here. So what else can you play? We have a single, we have pairs, you also have triplets if you want. So maybe this player right here has these 2 5s and they're wild still. They could play 3 5s. But the other things that you can play is runs. The runs, though, they have to be of the same suit. So as you can see here, this 5-4 is a 2-card run, which is totally valid, but you couldn't do this, a 5-4 with 2 different suits. They have to be of the same suit. So maybe this player up here plays a 2-card run. So coming to the square silver player over here, maybe they play a higher 2-card run. Again, you can't change up the meld type like over here they have a 3-card run, but they can't play that because they have to keep the same meld type. That's the basic play, and play like this will just continue and continue and continue. But let's show off some of the powers. So maybe this player decides to use one of their power cards. They have one that says they can change any 1-card suit. They're going to apply it to this 10 here, and so now they can play a run all the way from 6 to 12 because they're changing that 10 suit. So now all players pass, rightfully so, because it was kind of absolutely wild. And then this player, they maybe lead the 2. And then if this player over here plays a 13, that is really high. But this player down here also has the highest single, so they're able to play on that. And then that would then clear the trick. So play like this is going to continue until someone sheds out. And also, very importantly, as you look at people's hands, notice once they're down to fewer than 6 cards, they're going to flip this token here. This fewer than 6 does include any of the artifact cards or their wild. And as you can see, the other side of the 6 says you now may not pass voluntarily, but you get a bonus. Which leads us to how the game scores. Players are going to, again, keep playing until someone sheds out, and when that happens, you're going to look at your hands, and you're going to lose a point per card, but you're going to get positive points for the lowest value in your hand. So let's say, for example, maybe it looked like this, or that player played that, and this player over here eventually just plays all their cards, and they are the one to go out. So if it looked like this at the end, this player has shed out. They now have less than 6 because now they actually have 0. They are out. Players are going to look around the table, and you're going to lose a point per card, and then get a bonus for your smallest if you are in the range. So over here, this player over here has more than 6 cards, so they don't get a bonus. Looking at this player over here, they have 0 cards, so they lose 0 points, but they have 0 for their smallest, so they just got 0. Whereas this player over here, looking at their cards, they lost 1, 2 points, but their lowest is an 8, so they actually got 6 points. However, looking at this player over here, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, minus 10 points. So minus 10, 6, and 0. Let's look at maybe a little bit of a different example, because that was pretty brutal. Maybe this player over here actually had 4 cards, so they did have a bonus. But as you can see, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, and their lowest was a 3. So they lost 4 points, got 3, so they actually still got -1. So you do kind of want to keep some high cards. That's most of the scoring. One thing to note, if you have any artifact cards or wilds in your hand, they count as 0. So if this person had this at the end, they do have less than 6, so they do get a bonus. So it'd be minus, 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 but their lowest in their hand is 0. So if it even looked like this, that would actually be -3 points, because they would lose 3 for having a point, minus a point per card, but they would gain 0 because wilds are 0 at the end in your hand. That's how scoring works, and that's how the bonus works. But what's really important is, as you can see, it says may not pass voluntarily. So yes, you do want to keep high cards for the bonus, but now I'm going to explain how you can get into this situation where you might be messed up by having to play. So rewinding back, let's say this player and this player and this player are all still in it. Maybe this player leads a 2. So now, since everyone is in the bonus territory, they can't pass voluntarily. So looking at this person's hand, they have a 3, a 12, and a wild. They would have to play one of these cards. They could play the 3 if they wanted to, they could play the 12 if they wanted to, and the wild has to be played if they could. So let's just do a quick example of the 12 here. Coming to this person in here, may not pass voluntarily. They don't have to play the 8, but they do have to play the 13. So then it would come over here. They also may not pass, but they have to pass. So they're going to pass. Coming over to this person, they have to pass. So then this person would win it, this would wipe, and then they would be forced to go out. Let's rewind a little bit and show maybe a different example. Maybe they had this. So then this person plays that and that. In this case, they would pass, this person would pass, and it would lead to this person. And then this person could play whatever they want. They could play that 3. It'd probably be better, point-wise, to lead this and say maybe it's a 2. And so coming to this person, they would have to play one of these cards. You don't have to play the strongest, you just can't pass if you have a valid play. So it's not like they have to play that 12 and try to win or whatever it may be. They just have to have a valid play. So when it comes to them, and there's that 2, they must play. Showing a different example, let's say this player over here plays the 5. So coming to the pink over here, they have to play if they can. So the 3 doesn't beat the 5, but this wild sure does. So they would have to play the wild as anything from 6 to 13. And again, that may not pass voluntarily means if you can do anything in your power to play, you must. So rewinding into a different example, let's say it's this person's lead and they have 2 7s and a 5. So maybe they play these 2 7s as a pair. Coming to the pink silver up here, they have a wild and a 9. So since the pair was led, they have to use that wild to make a 9 and play that. The may not pass also matters for changing suit, like if changing suit would help you play, or playing the highest single would help you play. You just have to be playing if you can. And that's it. Players are going to play until one player is out of cards. That's one full round. You'll play 4 rounds total, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. And that's how to play Seers Catalog. There's a variety of differences between Seers Catalog and Of What's Left. First and foremost, the player count is different. So Seers goes from 2 to 5 players, whereas Of What's Left only goes from 3 to 4. The other thing is, while Of What's Left had 4 of these kind of power cards, Seers Catalog has 15 of these artifact cards, which are various powers. Last thing to note is that the wilds in Seers Catalog go from 2 to 13 in any suit, whereas the wilds in Of What's Left are 1 to 14 in any suit. And those are the differences. The deck in Loop is 3 suits numbered 1 through 15. The 8s are special. Here we have the game set up for 4 players, so no matter the player count, each player is going to get dealt 11 cards, and then any leftover cards are just cut for the game for every single hand. So they're out of the game for the entire game. So at 4 players here, we have 1 cut, so that's definitely just going to get removed, not looked at. Also, the start player is going to get the start player card. It's to the player who most recently experienced deja vu. Let's say it's the Monsters, Inc. character. And then finally, you can give players these here, which will show the points that they'll get in a current round, depending on the player count. So at 4 players, the first person to shut out will get 4 points, second person 2, then 1, then 0. And these also are indications of what place you shut out. So I usually just give them to players and say, ignore the first, second, and third. That's just a Polaroid to show you how many points you're going to get. And it's also the normal side, because we're going to explain it to where subsequent rounds, you're going to play the loop side. But for now, we're going to move these because I think it's a little bit more confusing for the teach. After that setup, players will now look at their hand and they're going to discard 2 cards from that hand. So maybe you don't want certain cards that don't make sets because this is a climbing shedding game, and things you can play include sets or runs. So maybe this player over here thinks this 11 isn't very useful. They're going to discard that, and then maybe they discard the 8, which I'll explain for reasons later. So once everyone does that, the start player is just going to lead to the first trick. And it's a climbing shedding game, and what melds you can play is you can play a single, or you can play pairs or triples, or you can play runs of the same suit. A very important part of loop is that you keep your hand. You keep all the cards you played because you're going to be playing each other's hands over and over and over. So when you play to a trick, maybe you play an 11, this person over here passes, this person over here plays a 12, and then this person passes and this person plays a 15, and then everyone else passes. You're going to want to make sure that you take the cards you played and you played only off to the side in kind of a discard pile for yourself, and the person, anyone who plays into the trick, will make sure to do the same. So you don't want to kind of collect all the tricks, even though I'm going to be doing that in the examples, because you have to remember where the cards come from, which hands, because the hands, again, are going to stay there, and people are going to rotate, and the hands are not going to move, but the people are. So even though in this video I might be clearing tricks, just remember that every card you play will go off to the side, and then the person who wins the trick will now, just start playing to the next trick. But again, if it ends the trick, you're always going to be taking the cards you play off to the side. You never want to mix cards in the game. So for example here, maybe this person leads off with a pair of 6s. So what can beat that is a higher pair. So maybe this player over here plays their 9s. They could always pass if they want to. And it is a soft pass. So if you pass and it comes back to you, you can play again. So for example, if we're looking at Psyduck over here and they have the 12s, maybe they want to pass, and maybe this person passes, this person plays 2 10s, and then they pass, Psyduck could come back and play the 12s. But for now, Psyduck is going to pass. And then coming to Monsters Inc., they are also going to pass. Coming to this star player here, they play the 10s. Wow, watch this come true. So this person up here, they could play the 15s, but they're going to pass. And then this person, Psyduck, plays the 12s. And this keeps going until everyone passes. So maybe pass, pass, pass. Once that happens, you'll clean the trick, and then the last person to play, so Psyduck in this example, gets to lead again. And so the game would just continue in a normal way. Some important notes: runs have to be suited. They can be any length, but they do have to be suited. And playing higher, you do have to play suited. It doesn't have to be the same suit. So like when it came to this player here, they could play this, for example, but it does have to match the numbers. So if there's a run of 2, it has to be a run of 2 all the way around the table. Let's say that trick just wiped and this person leads a single and this person passes. The last thing to explain is whenever an 8 is played, that stops the trick immediately, and whoever plays it is going to lead to the next trick. So in this case, if it was led a single, this person plays an 8, boom, stops immediately, this wipes, and then the person who plays the 8 would then lead to the next trick. And this would be if 8s were in any combo. So let's say instead, if this person over here had led a run of 2 and maybe this person plays an 8, 9, same thing, that would stop the trick immediately, and the person who played the 8 would lead. The last thing special to explain is if players had discarded an 8, there's another fun surprise. So on your turn, if you want to, and you have discarded an 8, you can flip it. What that will do is from then on, the hierarchy flips. So it isn't 15s being the highest and 1s being the lowest, but rather 1s being the highest and 15 is the lowest. So let's just do a simple example here of how that could work. So maybe it's this player's turn, they lead a 2. It goes around, this player over here plays a 9. And now it comes back to this player, and they're looking at their hand, they're like, I really want to play on that 9, but I have nothing higher. I can flip this, and now 9s are weaker to all of these. And they could play this 8, and that would stop the round, and they could lead again. But maybe they don't want to yet. They can now play the 6 on the 9. Maybe this player plays a 3, and then it goes all the way around, and it goes to this player, and now they can play the 1. And now that is the strongest. Again, that flips it until someone, if they wanted to, could reflip the hierarchy. And so now this would reset it back to normal. So let's say, for example, that hadn't happened yet. This person played the 1, everyone passes. They can then clear the trick and then lead if they wanted to. But let's say it got around to this player and, you know, they had this in their hand and they really wanted to go out. So they're like, I'm going to flip this back to normal hierarchy. I'm going to play a 5. And then things would be normal. So this person over here could play an 8 and that would wipe the trick. But if they didn't, maybe they passed, and actually this person over here played an 11, and it could come to this person, they could play, you know, the 15, because the hierarchy is normal again. If, because there's 3 8s in the game, someone wanted to, and all the 8s were discarded, they could flip and turn it back. So the most wildness that can happen in a given hand is if everyone discarded the 8s, and there was a flip, flip, flip. Again, you do it on your turn, and it flips the hierarchy. And this is for everything. So like if you led a run of 2, or even just like pairs, right? Resetting here. If I led a pair of 9s, you could, if you wanted to, flip that and then be able to play any lower pair than the 9s, like these 2 6s. Also, you don't have to do that. You could discard an 8 and not reveal it if it's advantageous to you. That's just an option on your turn. So play like this would continue, and let's say it was this top right static player who played their 6s and they went out. They are going to take this first player gone out thing to denote it. So sometimes when we play, we'll just have like a stack over here that you can take off the top once you go out. So maybe next is the Tokyo pin, they go out, and then finally there, and then the monsters recycle will take the 4th. So at the end of that hand, players are going to look and see how many points they got. Now things are going to get wild. Players are going to take their 2 discards and the cards that they played and then made sure to keep, and they're going to put it next to their hand here. And now starting with the player who did the worst, they are going to stand up and they're going to move to any other seat they want to. They can't sit at their same seat. They have to switch. This is only at 3 and 4 players. At 2 players, you can sit in your own seat and play your own seat again. But we're going to be teaching the 4-player rules here. So the Monsters Inc. player, they got 4th, and maybe they're looking out and they're like, oh, that person got 1st. That's a really good hand. I want that hand. So then they're going to go over there and sit there. Then 3rd player is going to stand up. Maybe they want the 4th hand because they thought it was pretty good and they can make something out of it. And then finally, 2nd player has to switch. They can't sit at their own seat, so they're going to go over there. And then the 1st player will have to go to the last remaining seat. Now things are going to get spicy, because players kind of know what's in all of their hands, right? And also, the card is going to flip. You're now playing loop rounds. And as you can see on loop rounds, the 2nd place, because it went out 2nd, is going to have different evaluations than maybe the 4th place. So looking at the 4th place here, there's only points for 4 players, because 4th place doesn't exist at 3 and 2. But as you can see, 4th place, if you get 4th place again, you're going to get 0 points, which kind of makes sense. It's like, oh, maybe it's just a bad hand. But if you get 2nd, 3rd, or 1st, you're going to be getting some points. Whereas if you look at 2nd place here, if you get 2nd place again, it's like, okay, yeah, you'll get some points. Good job. If you get 3rd, oof, you did worse. So you're not going to get any points. If you get 4th, oh man, what were you doing? This got 2nd place last round. Oof. So you're going to lose points. But if you get 2nd, if you improve on what the previous player did, you'll get even more points. So as you can see, there's a nice scale to it. And let me show you just 1st and 3rd for some perfect comparisons here. So 1st, if you get 1st again, 4 points, because it's like, hey, it was 1st, so it's not as much as bumping from, 2nd to 1st. As you can see here, is only 4 points, but good job. You did good with a good hand, maybe. And then 2nd, you'll only get 1 point because you kind of dropped. But 3rd and 4th, you'll lose points because this was a 1st hand. What were you doing? Whereas 3rd over here, you're only going to lose points if you go from 3rd to 4th. But if you improve in, any way, you're going to get a good amount of points. So the points are kind of balanced here for how well you did. And you can also kind of see same thing for 3 players and 2 players, similar ideas. So as you can see in 3 players, if this got 1st, oh my gosh, it would get 4 points, and then 2nd one, -1. But then at 2 players, if it was 2nd and it went to 1st, you're getting points now, which kind of makes sense because I think 2 players is a bit of a zero-sum game. So that's how the scoring works. So again, these are going to go to those positions see if I remember what this was. And players are going to try to better themselves. A couple important notes. The start player remains here. So this hand will always be start player for the rest of the game. Also, you are going to take both your 2 discarded cards and the cards you've been playing, and you're going to be able to choose any 2 cards to re-discard. So that's a really cool part of the game is maybe a certain hand has an 8. Do you choose it to be discarded to have that flip ability, which inverses the strength, or do you keep it in your hand, maybe to surprise players because they thought you might do that, maybe not, and you use it to stop a trick immediately and then take control. So 8s are pretty strong, and like what you do with them and how you use them is a big part of the game. Also, how do you break up your hand? Do you do it differently? That's a big part of the game. So players will keep doing this. So players will play again in this way, and they're going to see how they do. So maybe next round, this person actually got second. So they will get 4 points. They'll take the second thing in front of them, and then maybe it kind of moved like this or something. So first actually went to fourth, second went to first, third maybe stayed the same. Players will get the points, and then they'll do the whole process again. So this person will stand up. They'll pick any hand. Maybe they want that one. This person over here with this third, maybe they want the fourth. And again, you're going to have to swap. So it'll go like that. And then players will do the same thing. And the game ends when you get to a predetermined number of points, depending on the player count. So at 4 players, you get to 12 points. And that's how to play Loop. So that is Seers Catalog and Loop. Let's cover the most bias salty game first, because I think it's gonna be a little bit quicker because again, I designed this. So take it with a huge grain of salt. And again, I'm not even gonna really comment on the game because I designed it. I do just want to say it was really, really interesting to be on a little bit of the other end of the side. I've talked a little bit before on the channel about developing, so developing Sail and Mori, and there's some other development games that are going to be coming out later that I've done. And so this was the first one that I was the design, and then the developer, the amazing Ted, was reaching out and being like, we're doing this and we're changing this. And it was really fun to be on that side and to see the process from a different perspective. And working with Ted was absolutely amazing. So some things that I personally loved from the experience is seeing the direction from a different point of view and having it fill in different gaps that I was maybe blinded to. It was fascinating. So, for example, of what's left went from 3 to 4 players. And part of that was intentional because I wanted it to be a standard deck design, and so you could only do so much with a standard deck design. And so what was amazing was in Seers Catalog, you're able to add another suit and play to 5 players, which I've played, and it works well. So it's fascinating that you can have, flexibility in a published design to make the game, more flexible, more open. That was really cool. And then the other thing you might be noticing, a great difference, is 2 players. So I played 2 players, and I think I was just stuck in this mindset of, so 4 players has 4 suits, 3 players has 3 suits. So it was like 2 players has 2 suits, and I don't know why I was so tunnel vision. I played it with John, the amazing Jonathan Cox, and we were like, 2-player doesn't quite work. And I think it was just because we played it with 2 suits, because the 2-player in this, where you have 3 suits and it's only shorter range, it works swimmingly. I was blown away. In fact, I was showing a close friend that I hadn't even shown any of my games to, and we played 2-player Seers, and it works great. It was hitting the same beats that I love that happen in this game, where it's a small thing, but I love to shed out first, and then I love to hold a high card, and the other person's like, oh, so let me try that strategy, and then you show them a different strategy, and you're like, oh yeah, you can hold a high card, but I'm going to hold lower cards and make you go out. Or, the next time you try to do that, then I'm just going to rush going out and make you have kind of lower cards because you're trying to anticipate last time. Just really cool moments that I think previously I couldn't make that puzzle work, and it was so great to work with Ted and have him make that puzzle work. It's one of those things where you realize just like different perspectives can make something so great. And so that was just wonderful. And then also have one of the initial decks where every single card has different art. And also the suits are like themed, which is great. Like this suit is more silver things. And then, whereas like the green suit is kind of things you can buy, like maybe One Night Ultimate Werewolf, if you've heard of it, or the Monster Mash on vinyl. But the fact that Rob, the amazing artist, put so much effort into every single card, I was blown away when I saw that. Because, you know, I've talked on the channel, working with Sai, and I've now worked with other artists, and getting unique art on every single card is not only a big task to just go back and forth and confirm art, but also huge for the artist to get done. Like, I was blown away that Rob did these so amazingly. And then also, it's, I mean, Bezier is way bigger than me, and maybe this is weird to say, but like, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of effort. And I'm just blown away that they put that much care and love into this game. So I couldn't be happier. And also, they are so funny. Ted's descriptions kill me. Like this one in particular, I think is so funny. It's 1 silver ingot, 1 ounce silver ingot, and it says worth its weight in silver. That is just too funny. Worth its weight in gold, worth its weight in silver. That's just good stuff. Or one of them, which I think was in the production materials, was the Seer Up soda, and then it says not to be confused with Seer Mist. That is just, it's objectively hilarious. So good. So I think just like so much care and love and humor, which I always love, goes into just the entire deck. So that is just blown away. I love the production. I think the cover's hilarious. I personally absolutely love the pun. I grew up looking at the Seers catalog, especially as one of those, I don't know what generation I'm in, kind of cusper people, but I think I had that vibe of looking through that Seers catalog, especially around the holiday season, and it had like so much wonder. So it feels like that, where there's so many different images, because, you know, they are all unique, that you can get a new hand in this game and just sit there reading, and it's almost like you are just like looking through this year's catalog again. It's absolutely wonderful. I can't gush enough of how well and amazing Ted and everyone at Bezier did on the production here. It's just absolutely stellar. But again, I'm biased, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But it was an absolute joy working with them on this. I was incredibly nervous, just being very open. I don't have a design out there, and pitching is so scary. And when I pitched to Ted, he was so helpful, and it was just a wonderful process, start to finish. And I know we're not even at finish, because it comes out at Gen Con, so I can't wait. I'm gonna go to Gen Con, be there. It's gonna be absolutely wild to see my game out there. I've walked the floors of Gen Con 4 or 5 years, and seen all these games, and I maybe I'm imagining things very grandly in my head, but to see my game there is going to be an absolute hoot, especially in that wonderful lineup with Sandbag and Xylotar and a few more to come. So, all that to say, thank you so much to Ted and the entire team at Bezier. Just an absolute wonderful production, and it was an absolute dream. So, thank you. I hope I don't just gush too much all over, but it was a wonderful time. Anyway, on to maybe a less biased take, because again, that was a biased take. Loop. First off, they were wonderful people at Tokyo Game Market, which was so fun, and we have covered Open by them in the past, which recently got a new edition. Actually, got picked up by, I think, Sunnybird or Mandu Games, and has kind of dials instead of those 2 cards, and a bigger box and kind of more to it. But Open was so much fun to show people, so highly anticipated, for me at least, was their sequel, Loop. And first off, they do the classic where same kind of art style, an absolute gorgeous art style, tuck box, and then when you get to the cards inside, pretty simple, but like a clean design. I love the card backs. I think Loop is my favorite at 4 players. I would hesitate to want to play this at 2 and 3. Again, this is subjective opinion, but I guess that's what this channel is. And for reasons that I've a little bit stated in, if you've watched the T9 video, I kind of give thoughts on Loop. But I'll elaborate here because I'm sure most have not seen that. Loop is a very interesting game. But what makes it interesting is that you're swapping seats and you're trying to replay a hand and do better than the person who just had that hand, unless they got first, and then you're trying to hit first again, right? And I think at 3 and 2 players, you just have less seats, so it's inherently less interesting. So at 4, which I think does so well, is you have that plethora, right? You can go from 3rd to 1st, or like 4th to 2nd, and you have this room to really improve on as much as you can with a hand. And there's also those pitfalls too. Like if you take a first hand, there's a long way down. I love it. I think there's so much fun to be had at 4 players, especially with a little bit trackable information. And also, most of the cards are in, because there's 45 cards in the deck and 11 dealt out. That means there's only 1 cut. And it's always kind of fun near the end of the game to be like, what was that 1 card? Especially if it's an 8. Then it gets a little bit spicy. But at 3 players and at 2 players, there's a lot more cards cut. You have less seats. At 3, I don't like it to where you're just like kind of shifting seats. You're just like playing kind of like musical chairs in a not fun way where you're just moving once, because you are always moving once because you can't sit at the same seat. And then 2 player, you can kind of sit in the same seat, which is interesting and fun. But again, it's like a binary decision, and it's just less interesting to me than the 4 players. Also, at 4 players, and I guess like in Loop in general, you can sometimes get just like dud hands. Like there's not many runs, or there's not many pairs, and it's just kind of disparate, and there's no 8s, which is a huge thing that I want to touch on later. You can just get bad hands, just kind of a thing with the game. And it's not the most fun. Another kind of critique of Loop. It's not the most fun to be sat with a bad hand. It is fun to take that bad hand and to do better with it. That's kind of the whole point of the game. And that does happen, and it's really fun when that does happen. It's fun when there's a hand that's like third, or like fourth, and you get second. It's a great feeling. It's like what I think Loop is all about. And you can play off that, because hands do feel so different, because what do players discard? Do they discard the 8 and use it to flip? Or do they not? It's got a really fun rhythm to it, and it's got, for such simple rules, a lot of flexibility in how players play. And that flexibility changes it to where when you do play the same hands again, they do all feel different. Like the second hand, even though everyone has the cards, pushed down to the same way, can feel so different. So I think that's great. But there are times where it's just like, oh, this hand's just bad. And everyone's played it, and no one can do anything with it because it's just bad. And when it happens at 3, it's much more noticeable, because you get that bad hand and you're like, oh, man, okay, I'm going to get third again, or maybe second. But it's a little defeating to be sat at the bad hand. And at 4, it doesn't really happen as much. Also, at 4, since there is more going on and other players and other things to kind of change a hand, I have noticed dud hands don't happen as often, because there's just so much more going on, so many more variables. So at 3 and 2, not my favorites. At 4, you just get those spicy moments. So much fun. The other thing about the game is, I think getting an 8 is just amazing. I kind of wish everyone got an 8, maybe. I know that would change the game a lot and break the game, but it gets to a point where the hands with the 8s, and it's not just like they do better and they go out first, which is true, but they're just more fun, having those 8s. So I get there's a meta to it where you're like, okay, well, the losing player can now choose the hand with the 8, and there's kind of a nice balance to it. But it's one of those things in a game that I've noticed. This happens in Boast or Nothing, or other games where if there's just a few or a small amount of great cards that everybody wants, the hands are more fun when you get them. It is. There's like a design philosophy where it's like follow the fun, just like let players have fun any way they can. And again, not like the game isn't fun when you get one of the hands that you don't have an 8, or it's also like maybe you're put into a hand that doesn't have an 8 because you had it last time, because the game kind of does balance itself. But I do wish maybe every player had an 8 or something. It's tough. When like one hand gets 2 of the 8s too, you're just like, oh man, they have so much power. Especially if they discard them both and they are choosing when things go high and low. The game can get pretty swingy and wacky when that happens. So it's fun. It makes for like memorable moments, and also after that happens, players are just like clamoring to get that hand, and so the last player usually takes it and then does well. But also I think that's when the game is maybe a little bit at its most uninteresting, because again, like if you got first and you have 2 8s, often the player will at least get like first and second again. So then it's a situation where I pick that seat because I want just like some points, and then players kind of get into this like mode where everyone's like, oh, okay, you're gonna get that seat now, I'm gonna get whatever's left. And I think where loop is best is when all the hands are more balanced and players are like, ooh, can I make this bad hand good? That is when loop is the best. And so it's tough. So I think that's another downfall, is sometimes hands are just really good, sometimes hands are just really bad, and the game is a little bit fragile in that way. It can still work, but it breaks, I think, what is the fun of loop is all the hands are around the same strength, and it's like, what can you do with it this round? How can you play with it this round? Overall, though, I think loop is a wonderful, wonderful time. I think if it weren't for some of those fragile moments, and if I only played at 4, I would definitely give it the seal. But I think as is, I think you can just have a little bit of kind of some uninteresting hands in loop. But the highs of this are huge. I do want to end on a note of, I think this is one of the most fun games at 4 for a climbing shitting game. The rules are simple. It is so dynamic from hand to hand, and that hook is so, so, so fun. So I want to emphasize, this can be amazing, amazing fun. I haven't played the 6 and 8 variant, and then I saw someone online say they played at 5. So I don't know how that works, because again, I love the fact that you can switch hands. And so any way to increase the amount of hands at the table is a thumbs up in my book. So at 4, highly, highly, highly recommend. I really, really, really like it at 4. It's a great time. 3 and 2, not my favorite. So that's loop. I will say one of the other things that I personally love to do when I teach the game is you can teach it like a normal climbing shitting game, and just be like, hey, the goal is to go out, and you can play these melds, and then this is what 8s do, and let's just play. And you can play the first round. And then after you do that, you can flip it and explain the craziness to the game. The hard part is you have to tell players like, hey, whenever you play a card, like keep it to your side. So it kind of hints at the twist, but it is so much fun. I've taught it multiple times where I reveal that to players, and I'm like, and now we're going to stand up and the hands stay the same, and you're going to move over to that chair. And it is so much fun. The look on their face where they're like, ah, so much fun. I think purists would be like, well, they should have known that you were going to keep the same hand so they can keep track of the hand. And yes, I think you're right. But also, it is so much fun to do that. I did it at T9, and James almost ruined it. I was doing this at T9, and James comes over, because there's just fun moments of this game, and I think that's another huge highlight for it, is it just leads to wonderful, wonderful moments where someone takes like a 3rd or 4th hand and gets 1st or 2nd, or a hand that's just been getting last every time, and they bring it to 1st. That's just so much fun. So James came over and was like trying to tell the table that, and I was like, cut, stop, because I hadn't told them the twist yet. And once he realized that's how I was teaching it, he couldn't believe it. He like exploded. It was so funny. So yeah, I think I personally love a game that you don't have to teach all the rules and you can kind of just like jump right in, and then also one that has an amazing, amazing twist if you do that. So feather in the cap for loop. Obviously, maybe don't teach it that way if you have players who would get really annoyed at that. But thankfully, I play with people who are in it for the twists, in it for the fun, in it for the goofs. Overall, a good time though. I think Loop, I like Loop more than Open, but I would say Open handles like the player counts better. So I think the highs of Loop at 4 players are better than maybe 4-player Open, but I think Open does 2 and 3 players better or more interesting, or more handles it a little bit better than Loop at 3 and 2, if that makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. That is Loop and Seers catalog. I still can't believe it. It's gonna be wild. But yeah, I hope you like it. Just on a side note, I hope you like Seers catalog. It's available at Gen Con in pre-order now. Again, huge grain of salt. Like, huge grain of salt, obviously. But if you want to play sometime, I will be at Dicera West playing it. I will be at Gen Con playing it. So come on down, check it out. I have a wild idea at Gen Con to play it, which I'll explain a little bit more in the future, but I would love to meet you at a convention and play. Thank you again so much for watching, and see you later. Bye.